Welcome to the Baseball Insiders. Happy Wednesday. I am Adam Weinrib, joined as always by FanSided MLB insider Robert Murray. Hey, we have a lot to talk about today. Kyle Tucker, a major offer, ripples in the market, Cody Bellinger, Bo Bichette, but also the Red Sox go out. Oh, how are they going to pivot from Alex Bregman? Which bat? I don't know. Maybe a bat's still coming. Maybe a trade's still coming, but they go ahead and sign Ranger Suarez. Scared of big bucks? Scared of long-term deals? 5 years, 130 mil? Sounds like big bucks. Sounds like a long-term deal to me. So much to talk about. If we were talking about the Red Sox pivot this morning, I never thought this was going to be the pivot, even though they were telegraphing, hey, we're moving on to pitching. Anyway, here to break it down and answer all your questions is Robert Murray, the keeper of a lot of information today. Robert, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's good to be here. We've had a very fun last 24 to 48 hours in terms of reporting, and what has once been a quiet winter is finally awoken, and that is always fun. So I am very excited to break it all down. Obviously, dropped a pretty big one on Kyle Tucker yesterday, so I'm very excited to dive into that. But Adam Weinrib, good to be here. How you doing?
Oof, I'm doing good. Trying to hold a lot of buckets, a lot of moving pieces. Let's start with, and again, everyone, if you're joining us Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, that's when the Baseball Insiders with Robert Murray goes live. I am live with Eric Cole. We launch a show, Prospect Show, on Tuesdays. You can join us in the Discord for a private Q&A at 3 p.m. Eastern on Thursdays as well. If you're not an all-star in the Discord, come on by. That's where you can bother Robert and I between shows. We've got plenty in the outfield market to talk about, but let's just talk about Suarez. You know, where did Ranger Suarez to Boston come from? I had my eyes on maybe the Orioles here. The Suarez and Framber Valdez markets have been quiet as hell. And now this makes a loud addition to the and hey, maybe, you know, I show up last night. I'm thinking about talking about Ryan Weathers. We'll talk about that later, but this dwarfs that for now. Where did this come from for the Red Sox, and what's next now that the outfield depth chart's still stacked? The rotation depth chart goes like 10 deep.
Yeah, I mentioned it. I think it was the last show or the show before that we should not be discounting the Boston Red Sox with adding another starting pitcher. If there's one thing we've learned about Craig Breslow is he loves starting pitching, especially difference-making starting pitching. And that is exactly what Ranger Suarez is. And they have been on that. And as soon as Alex Bregman ended up going to the Chicago Cubs, Suarez became their top pitching target. And they ultimately ended up getting a deal done here. And that rotation, especially their first five, I mean, okay, let's talk about it. You have Crochet, you have Sonny Gray, and now you have Suarez. And you have some other very good young pitching there. You 8, 9, 10 deep at this point. You have a lot of riches there. And I think it's a really smart move by the Boston Red Sox. They finally make a free agent splash that isn't on the trade market. And I don't anticipate them being done by any means here. And the obvious name that everyone is talking about now with the Boston Red Sox is Bo Bichette. And he is someone who still has interest from the Toronto Blue Jays. He's got interest from the Philadelphia Phillies, and he met with Philadelphia earlier this week. And by all accounts, that meeting went very well. But I had someone wisely point out to me, when's the last time you heard about one of those meetings not going well? The next one that I hear that hasn't gone well will be the first, because it doesn't happen. But it was productive. The Phillies like Bichette, and we'll see where it goes from there. I don't get the sense that anything is imminent as of this point, but it's clear that Bichette's market is shaping up to be very nice, which has been really the case all offseason. So you have those teams, you have other teams in the mix here as well. But the Boston is one of those teams. And if they can add Bichette, that changes the narrative on what's been a very frustrating offseason, especially with Bregman going to Chicago. But it's on Craig Breslow, and it's especially on ownership to get that thing done. Because if they don't, there's really no obvious solution on the free agent market for them to pivot to.
Do you think that if they do not pivot to Bichette or reel him in, that there's a mid-season trade to be had with all of this starting pitching depth? Like Tolley and Early can hang out at AAA, so can Kyle Harrison. Like they don't have to trade any of these people immediately, but at some point you'd think they would have to upgrade the offense. There was also a comment asking if they were still going to add a 1 or 2 to the rotation after what Rob Bradford said today. I would have to imagine this is where that aggression landed, and they're not still trying to make a trade for Freddie Peralta or Joe Ryan, but you can tell me if I'm wrong there. They just have so much in the rotation that's kind of hard to fathom.
Yeah, I can't see them doing that. I mean, Craig Breslow loves starting pitching, but that being said, I think the headlines of that rotation now are very likely going to end up being the guys come opening day. So I would be surprised. I guess you can't rule anything out, but I would be pretty surprised if they made a trade like that.
Yeah. And hey, Trevor D, Matt Shaw for one of those young Red Sox arms makes sense. There are plenty of Matt Shaw commenters. Look, Shaw made significant improvements last year. He is a guy who feels a little bit squeezed out of the Cubs infield, but could also become a utility player in the Cubs infield. Ended up having a better season than most think. 98 OPS plus by the end of the year, but lost in the shuffle. If you have the chance to get Alex Bregman, you do. He's a childhood Red Sox fan, Boston area native. That would make sense. I don't know if that's the upgrade. That's definitely not a Bo Bichette style splash.
No, and I don't think the Cubs should be in a hurry to move on from Matt Shaw. He's a really nice, productive young player, and they really like the upside there. And they've parted with some guys from that farm system. And obviously Shaw, I mean, he played a lot in Chicago last season, so I can't really call him a prospect as of this point. But I think they'd be smart to hold on to him. And you can look at some different guys here for the Red Sox or just any of these teams to go out and look at. You could look at Nico Horner with the Chicago Cubs, who's been mentioned in trade rumors here, especially after they got Bregman. Ketel Marte, he's obviously Diamondbacks have made it clear that he's not moving this offseason, but could they be enticed during the season? I mean, shoot, there's Brendan Donovan out there as well. And shoot, we definitely know that the Cardinals and Red Sox like making moves together. So could they come together on that? So there's options for sure. But we'll see. I don't see Shaw moving as of this point.
Yeah, and commenters bringing up something we said on the prospect show yesterday. Keith Law put out a piece that said Shaw was uncoachable at points last year. I did press on that, and from what I heard from Cubs people, made a lot of adjustments. That seems to be Law's opinion. We just brought it up yesterday because it was the most recent piece of information somebody put out about Matt Shaw. It does seem to be the case that he adjusted, whether he falls on or off the Cubs depth chart. Again, just we're bringing up everything that comes up in a given week. But yeah, it does seem like Shaw was more coachable than that piece may have insinuated. Now let's move on to the Kyle Tucker situation. You had $50 million Kyle Tucker offer yesterday. You had that's AAV, not in total. You had that from the New York Mets. It seems like we may be moving closer to a resolution here, and you are as plugged in as anyone on the Tucker market. So let me know who's moving on Tucker. Where is it moving? How long the deal may be? Give me that info.
Yeah, let's start with the Mets. They have made a short-term offer worth $50 million per season, and that is a really big number. I had a lot of people around baseball text me after I reported that yesterday, and they were like, okay, they're definitely serious after Tucker or seriously pursuing Tucker. And they absolutely are. But they're not alone in this by any means. You have the Toronto Blue Jays, who, according to ESPN, have made a long-term offer. I don't know the terms. I don't know the years and money there. Also, I've been asked this plenty about the Mets' offer. I don't know the years on it. I just know it's $50 million a year is what they've offered. Don't know years, don't know deferrals or anything like that. All I know is 50. But those two teams are very serious in this. And the Jays are in a position where they've been pursuing big names year in and year out. They pursued Ohtani. They pursued Juan Soto. They pursued a bunch of these guys. They haven't gotten them. They got Dylan Cease earlier this offseason, and they are still very interested in Kyle Tucker. And he visited their facility there in Dunedin. Apparently that went well. And I do believe, with what we're hearing about the Mets here, with what was reported by ESPN about the Jays' offer, I think things are moving along for sure. I do wonder, there's a lot of silence around the Dodgers. I don't know what that means. I don't know if it means anything. I don't know if it means something, but there's a lot of silence there. So I think it'll be one of those teams. But as of this point, it's anyone's guess on where Tucker goes.
Who signs first, Kyle Tucker or John Harbaugh?
I mean, it's a good question. I don't know. I mean, apparently the Giants are making a push to hire Harbaugh today. So, I mean,
do not let him out of the building. Although
they shouldn't let him out of the building.
Technically, though, that's illegal. If he wants to leave the building and you don't let him out, I do think they can prosecute for that. But we will see where that, again, not relevant here. What is relevant is keeping watch on Tucker, and whether the silence from the Dodgers means anything or the reported massive offers are more indicative. I do think we should learn soon. Now, there's also Cody Bellinger in the outfield market.
Yes.
It sounds, it's very funny to read the different Bellinger pieces because you'll read one and it'll sound like the Yankees are making progress. They're making creative concessions. They're thinking about adding opt-outs. You read that yesterday morning. Bob Nightingale last night said the Yankees are getting more pessimistic on Bellinger, but it didn't include any of that opt-out conversation. It seems like different folks have different sources or at different stages of the Bellinger conversation. And Tucker obviously could play a big role there because the Mets could be interested in Bellinger. The Dodgers could be interested in Bellinger on certain parameters. But if one of them gets Kyle Tucker, they are no longer interested in Cody Bellinger. What can you tell me about the way that market has developed? You don't need to add optimistic or pessimistic at that point, but do you think the Yankees are still the most logical spot? And do you think, hey, creativity rather than extending beyond 5 years gets this done?
I still think that the Yankees are the best fit for Bellinger. I think Bellinger is the best fit for the Yankees. And talks haven't resulted in a deal quite yet. But that being said, I absolutely think it's the most logical. I think it's the most likely outcome. It's just a case where they haven't been able to get to a deal yet. There are other teams that are on Bellinger for sure, but I've maintained it all offseason that I think he's the best fit for them. And let's say the Yankees end up letting Bellinger leave. How do you explain that if you're that franchise, you're that front office, you're that ownership group? How do you explain it to the franchise or to the fan base that you let him leave? Because you're supposed to be the big bad Yankees. You're watching the Orioles spend. You're watching the Red Sox go out and get Ranger Suarez and add through the trade market. And you're watching the Blue Jays do what they're doing. You have to respond in some way. And Bellinger is the best option for them to do so. And to add to it too, exactly what you're getting in Cody Bellinger if you're the New York Yankees. He is someone that fit in very well in that clubhouse. You compare him with Aaron Judge, and they can have the primes of their careers, or just, I don't want to say the remainder of their career, but a good chunk of the remaining part of their careers can be together. And with those two, and you still have to add after this, you can't just go into or you can't just sign Bellinger and call it an off season. You have to add more, but you absolutely have a way better chance of competing for a World Series with Cody Bellinger. So do I think it gets done? I do. Is it a guarantee? No, but it is by far and away, to me, the most logical outcome.
And we appreciate everybody joining in. If you've got questions, again, hit us, let us know. The New York Yankees also apparently bringing in, they saw the future. They saw the Ranger Suarez thing, and they're like, we just simply have to make a prospect overpay here and bring in Ryan Weathers instead, because you got to go head to head with the Boston Red Sox. Look, Ryan Weathers, the stuff is there. The velocity is there. The durability is not there. If this is a precursor to another trade, if you're giving up, maybe Luis Gil or Will Warren in a package for Freddie Peralta, or one of those bona fide aces I've heard so much about, makes a lot of sense. As of now, feels like a hefty price to pay. I didn't think I'd see anybody paying a heftier price than Shane Baz, but then I just did, because Brian Cashman gave up even more for Ryan Weathers. You and I talked a little bit about this yesterday. We're both a bit confused. What can you tell me about how this came together, and whether it's the first of a few different steps or just the be-all, end-all?
Yeah. So the Yankees and Marlins have been talking trade plenty, and Edward Cabrera was definitely a focus for them at one point. And Dylan Lewis's name came up, and that was as our guy Hubs first reported. So I want to give him his flowers there. And obviously Cabrera ended up going to the Cubs, and the Yankees and Marlins continue to have conversations. And Ryan Weathers, through different people, I had heard that the Marlins were more open to discussing him, and that it seemed like a legitimate possibility. And the Yankees go out and get him, and they pay a haul of 4 prospects, with Dylan Lewis being involved in that. So it's clear that the Marlins loved Dylan Lewis and that they wanted to get him at some point here. They got him, and I thought it was a really nice haul by the Marlins overall. I think they did very well here. But you also get Weathers. He's controllable. He's young. He is also not making that much money this season. He's got good upside. So I like the gamble here by the Yankees, but I agree with you. They can't be done. And the name that stands out to me above all would be Freddie Peralta. He is besides Mackenzie Gore, he's the best starting pitcher on the market. He's making $8 million, which is not going to stretch the payroll for the Yankees or any team by any means here. You can go out and get him. I think that'd be a huge win for the Yankees. And they have a history of doing deals together. They made the Devin Williams trade last year. Obviously, that didn't necessarily work out for the Yankees, but I have strong reason to believe that Peralta would be a way better fit for the Yankees. And I've been around Peralta for a good chunk of his career when I covered the Brewers, and I got to see him this past postseason as well. As far as a person goes, he is unbelievable. He's one of the coolest guys that I've ever been around. He automatically, what he brings to a clubhouse is like very like impactful. It's very important. So as far as a pitcher on the mound, he's an ace caliber guy. Locker room, tremendous. So I would sign off on that deal if I was the Yankees for sure. But there is a long list of teams here. And I also think the Mets make a tremendous amount of sense, especially with David Stearns running the show there in Queens.
Yeah. So coolest guy you've ever met? I guess it's like Freddie Peralta. It's me. We're both sort of up there. No, I mean,
no one compares to you, Adam. No one compares to you.
Wow, fishing for compliments here on the baseball. Look, I mean, Peralta makes more sense than Mackenzie Gore to me, just because I don't want that oops all lefties rotation for the Yankees. It's like power lefty is too much of a good thing. I do think there's a chance that you see Weathers move to the bullpen midseason if all the depth stays healthy. But it's just hard to imagine all the depth stays healthy, and it's hard to imagine Weathers is part of that healthy portion of the depth. Mets fans in the comments seem to trust Mike Puma saying the Tucker decision is imminent, but they didn't trust Mike Puma saying that Juan Soto caused clubhouse friction this offseason. That's interesting. I learned that the hard way.
Yeah, you believe what you want to hear. That's exactly.
Hey, look, it's not exclusive to every fan base believes what they want to hear, but it is funny. I said like, "Ooh, that's interesting," and a bunch of Met fans were like, "You can't trust Puma," and now Puma's like, "Tucker decision imminent." It's like Puma, that guy rocks. Want to bring up the San Francisco question, Space Magic Storm. Latest I heard is they're interested in Donovan. There was another question asking about what's going on with it. Yeah, Chevy PR. What are you hearing about SF? There was a Jeff Passan tweet yesterday about the Giants and Horner and the Giants and Donovan. And then we haven't heard much about that from anybody else. So question there, what is Jeff hearing? Where's that smoke coming from? Or is that just noting that interest has been registered?
No, what Jeff said, spot on. Not that Jeff needs any confirming.
This is the first time you've probably heard Jeff Passan accurate.
Jeff Passan. Yeah, what he reported is indeed accurate. Yeah, that's breaking news on that one. But what he reported is right, that the Giants have had conversations about Nico Horner and Brendan Donovan. It's something that they've looked at almost all offseason. They've had conversations with both teams about both players. But as of yesterday, I did not get the feeling that anything was close there. But it seems that the Giants are absolutely in that market. They've been, as I mentioned on a show a couple of weeks ago, they've been very active on the trade market. That's the area that it feels like it's getting the most attention from them right now. It hasn't led to a deal, but I'm not just saying this next part about Horner or Donovan. I'm just from a market standpoint, I'd be surprised if the Giants don't make a trade. I'm curious to see who it is, but they seem pretty intent on getting some reinforcements here.
And as we've learned in the past couple of days, whether Ryan Weathers is your cup of tea or not, a lot of people accuse the Yankees and Red Sox of silent off seasons. And over the last 24 hours, both have added a starting pitcher. And the Yankees have made a trade of significance. Again, whether you think Weathers is the answer, they traded 4 prospects for a controllable starting pitcher. That's a move. We can grade the move positively or negatively, but it's a big, impactful move. Ranger Suarez, we all expected the Red Sox to go for Bichette or go for offense. Ranger Suarez is a significant move. Anything, by the way, on your end on Eugenio Suarez? Because there's a Pirates question about third base options. I know Red Sox fans are thinking about Eugenio Suarez too, given the budget constraints after bringing in Ranger Suarez. Any thoughts about what that market looks like, if that could be a budget win for somebody?
I have not heard Suarez with the Pirates on my end. I'm not saying that they haven't talked by any means, but that's something that I have not heard. As far as the Red Sox go, Suarez definitely makes sense, especially after losing out on Bregman. But that being said, like, you have Bo Bichette out there. To me, after getting Ranger Suarez, you have to pivot to Bo Bichette. And who knows if a deal ends up getting done there. It's going to be a very expensive contract, but Bichette makes a ton of sense. So you have a player who is 4 years younger than Bregman. He's a really good player offensively. Defensively, I know there's some questions there. Like, I totally understand that. But every team that I've spoken to this winter has said that he can play shortstop, that they believe he can. But also by signing him, you make your club infinitely better and you weaken a division rival. To me, that is an opportunity that the Red Sox need to capitalize on. I think it'd make a whole lot of sense. It's up to that ownership group to like sign off on that eventual contract, whatever he ends up getting. We'll see, but I hope they do it because that'd be really fun. And it would finally, between him and Suarez, make really strong use of their savings from the Rafael Devers trade.
They still have those savings. Anything else in your notebook that we have not touched on, or are you just waiting for, the details around the big fish to drop at this point?
Nothing else new to report on my end, but I can confidently say I have coffee here for a reason. So this is it's gonna be a fun week, a very, very fun week. So I appreciate you for that, Adam. You're the GOAT, and thank you for leading the podcast as always.
You are the GOAT, of course. No podcast without you. No podcast without the viewers and listeners. We appreciate you showing up, registering your questions. If you've got more questions, which I know you do because this is only getting nuttier somehow. We're in mid-January. Drop by the Discord, 3 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. You can get some Q&As in at the all-star level with Robert. You can bother us both between podcasts. You can make fun of the Yankees. In fact, I welcome it because there's plenty to mock there. Ryan Weathers' domination, though, is going to shock all of you. And we are live again. The pre-recorded show going to go up Friday evening, so we'll check in on Friday as well. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Robert Murray, drink that coffee.
I will drink that coffee. But Adam, thank you. Almost everyone in the comments, thank you. And Sean Daly, our lovely producer, thank you. And we'll see you back here on Friday.
Take care, everybody.